Well, hello and welcome to our webinar today of how to get your message across with millennials. It is a big deal nowadays with the workforce constantly changing, and so we're going to help you get prepared the best way we can. So if you can not hear, you're just seeing the screen, then you need to follow the instructions that you see on the screen to call in, or use your access code to gain access to the audio. If you have any problems, then go ahead and call that phone number right there and you can get some help. Our agenda today, we're going to be dealing with everything revolving around millennials. So what is millennial? You're hearing that term more and more nowadays being tossed around as kind of a buzzword, if you will, and so we're going to define it and give some clarity and some boundaries to it for you. We're going to talk about the myths and truths about millennials, what they need and want out of their office environment, out of their supervisors, out of their coworkers, and how to communicate with them in regards to their job, in regards to corporate culture, and all the things that they need to do to be successful in the workplace and thereby making you, as their employer, successful. During our webinar today, we're going to have opportunities for you to engage with us with your questions. There is a toolbar on the right-hand side of your screen with a little chat box and question box open. You can go ahead and type in a question at any point in time, and at the end of our webinar, if we have enough time, we're going to take a few of those questions. If we do not have a chance to take your questions, then we will be sure to answer you personally after the webinar within a week or so. We'll get that answer to you. So feel free to engage with us as we go. Ask any question you like, and we'll get to it at the end if we have time. So our presenter is a millennial herself, Jennifer Lindstrom, our Vice President of Business Development. She has been with us for the last few years, experienced in wellness and actuarial consulting. She's been helping us take our business to the next level, and a lot of her expertise coming through the lens of a millennial has really helped us change the corporate culture here at Fickewirth. So we are excited to have her with us, and go ahead and welcome her today.
Thanks for the introduction, Matt. Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here today and talk a little bit about my lovely generation, the Millennials. We are an interesting group, and I'm excited to kind of clear the air on some of the bad rap that we do get, which is that we're bratty, etc. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to use the uniqueness of our group in the benefit of the company, and as well as leadership and management styles to kind of go through there. So as Matt said, my background is in actuarial science, in wellness consulting, employee benefits, as well as PPACA. And so one of the things, obviously, that ties all of that together is communications. And, you know, being a millennial myself, communication is very, very important to me because I'm constantly on my cell phone, on Facebook, on Twitter, on everything in between. And I think it's really, really important to make that as effective and as professional as possible. So let's start with, what is the big cause for concern? Why are we even here? Why are we talking about millennials? Well, millennials are going to comprise more than 40% of the U.S. workforce by the year 2020. So that means that this is a huge influx of change. The older generation of baby boomers, Generation Xers, will soon be retiring, and companies are going to need to be replacing them with this group of millennials, which comprises some people in the Gen Y and actually a little tail end of the Gen X. In order to be successful, companies are going to need to understand how these employees work and how to motivate and communicate with them. In addition to, one of the things I like to point out is, in addition to how these millennials impact your workforce, companies also need to understand that this is also their new target market for their products. So if you're selling to millennials, that's going to be the new world, is this group of people that are going to be the new consumers of the world. They consume the different products that you have, and they also are looking at jobs and trying to contribute to the society. So that's why we're talking about this, is that there's going to be a huge influx of change. The baby boomers are holding on as long as they can for working, but at some point it's going to be a huge shift, and companies just need to be prepared for that change. But the biggest issue is that millennials are just really different. They're really, really different. If you look at the difference between a baby boomer and a millennial, you're going to see a very, very drastic change. I would argue between a baby boomer and a Gen X, there's obviously a huge amount of change, nowhere near as huge as between baby boomers and Gen Y. That's just a very, very dramatic change. And because right now we have the baby boomer generation typically leading and managing the workforce and working different companies, that they're going to have a harder time understanding what these millennials want and need from their employers. So the millennials are just different. We've all grown up in the internet era, and with cell phones and AOL Instant Messenger and Facebook and all of these different things that have allowed us and basically made us be available at all times and be adaptable to change all the time. Millennials have very different job expectations because they've seen what's happened with the baby boomer generation and with the Generation X generation as well. Just as the baby boomers were influenced by what happened with the Great Depression that their parents went through, the millennials are used to and kind of have adapted because of the way that the baby boomers have adapted and the depression that we've recently seen. So that's kind of what we'll go through, and obviously what millennials are really different because they want more out of a job than just a paycheck. It's not all about money for millennials, which I think is a little bit of a shift, because if the baby boomers were raised with Great Depression eras and money was so tight and so difficult to come by, that was a big focus of the jobs that they were looking for. But if you look at now the baby boomers, that's kind of their focus. You look at a millennial, that's not the focus. The focus is more of a work-life balance, and we'll get into all that later. They want to be, because they need to be communicated in ways that are different than their parents or supervisor managers. So that means that they're looking for just different ways. So meaning they don't want to be communicated in the same way. They don't necessarily want snail mail. That's a really easy example I'll probably use a lot today. So this is why we're talking about it, because there's going to be a huge change in your workforce, and that workforce is very, very different than what you're typically used to working with. So let's step back and talk about what actually is a millennial. How do we define a millennial? So the millennials are born between 1980 and 2000 approximately. Basically, that's the group that we're talking about. They're the child of the post-World War II baby boomer generation, so that means that all of our parents are baby boomers, meaning that they're all still working. They want to retire. They can't retire. They don't have enough money to retire. They don't have money like their parents had to retire. So we see that they've worked for a really long time. They've worked really hard. They've sacrificed so much throughout their lives, and they still are having to work probably until their 70s. And so that's going to impact the way that we view work and kind of sustainability of life. Millennials are extremely tech-savvy and socially connected. This is probably the most obvious one, because we know how to use any kind of system available. We know how to stay socially connected. We've been forced since we can remember to have an identity in the digital era. So basically, we've had to create and communicate with our friends, our family members, through social networking, social communications, which has created a kind of social identity that's not face-to-face, not even over the phone, no voice, except for the voice of technology. So that's a really, really interesting point that I think plays a big, big role in what really makes us different. And these statistics, I think, are just absolutely fascinating, that millennials are incredibly racially diverse. So 20% have at least one immigrant parent. So that's a big deal. That's a big change from what you're talking about with the baby boomer generation. And then this just kind of breaks it down that about 40% of that immigrant parent is African American, Latino, Asian, or racially mixed background. So not just all the varieties of all the white people in Europe. It's not that kind of mixing. It's an interesting kind of mix. So I think that that's really, really fascinating, because that also changes the way that everybody views it, because those cultural differences come into play when we're talking about what we're looking for from a career and a long-term commitment. This is the one where we get a really bad rap, because we are very self-assured, positive personal self-image, and can-do attitude developed from doting parents and structured lives. So this can come off as cocky, obnoxious, you think you're the best, you don't think you need to earn your way, and that type of thing. But what it is that we've just been super self-assured our whole lives, including now when you look at Facebook. No one says, oh, I'm having a great day, and you get negative comments from friends. You say, oh, I'm having a great day, and all of your friends say to you, oh, I'm so glad you're having a great day. Me too. It's this constant positive reinforcement, positive self-image, you look so pretty in your picture, etc. That just kind of goes on and on and on, where that wasn't as strong and as prevalent because we didn't have the technology that we have today. So that's kind of a background of what a millennial is. So these are some common millennial myths: that they lack company loyalty, they're lazy, cynical, they have no work ethic, they have unrealistic work expectations, an inflated sense of workability, lack of emotional intelligence, and do not handle criticism well. So the big thing that people say about millennials is that they are entitled, meaning that they don't think that they have to kind of do anything. A lot of people and employers will say, well, they come here for 1 year and then they leave. And they blame that on the millennial. And I would say that there's always two parties, you know, takes two to tango. So there's always two people involved in this. And I think that a lot of the employer groups that I've seen and have worked with are having a hard time adapting to embrace these millennials. And that's kind of why we're having the webinar today. It's to make sure that you're not missing out on that talent group that is going to be taking over the world eventually. So these myths are the common ones, but the actual truths are that millennials are very loyal to a company as long as they have similar beliefs and values. That's a key thing with millennials. They want to make sure that they are philosophically in line with the company that they're committing to. If they are philosophically aligned with them, they're going to be loyal and they're going to commit to them and they're going to give back, and they'll stay there and they're going to work really hard for you. Same idea here, where they're willing to put in the hours and work for a company that truly values employee efforts and quality of work. So again, they want to feel that if they're going to put that effort in, you're going to actually value it. You're going to say, thank you so much for trying, and that was a really great job that you did. So many times, as I said, we're so used to, as millennials, used to getting this positive reinforcement constantly from our parents or from Facebook or from other friends, that we go to work, and now all of a sudden no one's telling us that we're doing a great job. That hurts our sense of self, because we don't understand why that's happening. It must mean that we're not doing a good job. It must mean that this isn't a good fit for me. So that's the idea that, you know, as long as the employer is willing to say and take that time to say that you're doing a really great job and thank you so much for putting the effort, it takes 2 seconds, you're going to keep that employee very happy. They have a very strong work ethic when they're making a difference in the world. So I talk to a lot of employers about this, because this is where your mission statement comes in. If your mission statement is, well, what we do is we sell computers, that's not very interesting. But if you say, well, what we do is we help bring worlds together through communication strategies, that's a very nice messaging, and you may just use computers as the mechanism to do that. That is making a difference in the world and bringing change and helping make the world a better place. That's what everybody wants, and millennials are just fighting for that more. I think everybody's always wanted that. Baby boomers wanted that. Gen Xers wanted that. Gen Y, everybody wants that. I just think that the millennials are taking a stand and saying that, you know what, if I have this, I'm going to work really, really hard for you. Many have paid their way through college and are determined to climb the corporate ladder. So as opposed to other generations where actually you had a lot more potentially people coming back from war who had GI Bills and they had the ability to pay for school through the government, everybody now, most people now are paying their own way through college. Their parents haven't saved enough money for retirement, so let alone saving enough money for them to go to college. So most people I know, I can almost tell you most of my friends have all paid their own way through college. And everybody I know is also determined to climb the corporate ladder, meaning that if they decide to go the corporate path, which is a whole other discussion, that if they do decide to go down that they're determined to climb that corporate ladder, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get there. They want to stay educated and earn the right for advancement, so they want to continue to learn, and they want to earn that right for advancement, meaning that they want to put the time in, be recognized for it, and then earn that right. They don't feel that they should just come in and, well, I have my MBA, so I should be the CEO, right? I mean, that's not how they actually believe it. Of course, they would love to leapfrog over everybody and become the CEO, because that sounds like a great thing, but they also understand that there are a lot of very smart people out there that they are maybe inferior to because they don't have the experience yet. And they crave constant feedback and are not satisfied with just an annual review. So this is really big in terms of performance management, because, again, this comes back to I'm used to getting constant feedback on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, from my parents, from my family, through text messaging, that then I come to work and I don't hear anything from anybody until my annual review. That's just not enough, because you go that whole year wondering, well, am I doing the right thing? Do they even like me here? Are they even satisfied with my work? Could I do things better? And so it's really, really important that you have to give constant feedback. It doesn't mean you need to write up a formal review every week, but just that constant feedback in terms of discussions and conversations is going to go really, really far with your millennials. So what do millennials want? So we touched a little bit on that, going through the truths and the myths, but we'll dive into this based on the different areas. So in a job, we talked about work-life balance flexibility. This is like everybody's #1 dream, is work-life balance. We've seen our parents, as we've talked about, our parents have worked 9 to 5, they worked overtime, they stayed with the same company, and when you say, well, what do you do, can we go on a vacation? It's, well, I only get 2 weeks this year, and it's, well, you've been there for 25 years, how is that acceptable? That's really frustrating when you think that as a millennial that life is not all about money, life is not all about work, life is about enjoying it and having a purpose and bringing something to the world. So that work-life balance is what allows you to do that. It doesn't mean that you just work all the time. It means that you have the time to work, and that's important, but that you also have a life balance for your family and also for you to live the purpose that you actually believe in. They want to fulfill a sense of purpose that makes a difference, doesn't just provide an income. So I've talked about this. That's a really, really big key. Talking about, you know, when I've done recruiting with millennials, a really big thing, instead of saying, you know, what we do is we work with employers on their benefit plans. That's not very interesting. That's not an exciting message. So the message needs to be something more along the lines of, we make sure that employees and employers are satisfied with the situation they're in. We want to make sure that employers are competitive and that employees are happy with their employers, and that it's a reciprocal relationship. That's a very nice message to say, like, that's your job. Your job is to help us deliver that message. So I think that's the key, is just instead of just kind of making it, well, this is what we do, make it, you know, sound sexy, make it sound fun, make it sound exciting, that it's something that you're going to be contributing to the world. They also want a family environment at work, because we realize that we're going to spend a majority of our life at work. So we want to feel that that's actually fun, and we're not willing to just be there because you pay us a lot of money. That's just never going to be the same way. I think that's a shift, as I talked about with the baby boomers. But if you don't pay us that much, but you have a nice environment and you have the work-life balance and you provide a purpose, they'll love it. They'll stay, and they'll be a really happy employee. The clear goals and expectations is also a big deal, because, again, it's all about positive communication, positive reinforcement. So I want to know what the goals are so that I can meet those goals, so that you can tell me that I did a great job. And I want to be able to know what your expectations are. Do you expect me to climb the corporate ladder? Do you expect me to become vice president in a year? Do you expect me to not do that? Do you expect me to do really well in front of clients? What do you have expectations of me so that I can know if I can meet those, and then I can, again, you're going to tell me I did a good job. They also want a good company culture and employer-employee relationships. So this comes back to that idea that you feel like the employer is giving back to you. Meaning that the employer is not just there to pay you to do a good job, but that they're actually concerned about you and your family. So this comes back to all the little things that we talk about in terms of having time off so that you can have a work-life balance, having good rules around having family and around having children, having good bereavement leave. I mean, all of that kind of stuff really matters to these people. In terms of wellness as well, because having that that culture so that you feel like your employer actually cares about you is a really big deal. And that employer-employee relationship, I think more than ever, millennials are really interested in kind of having a friendship with the people that they work with. They actually want to feel like they can actually talk to the people that they work with. It's not the way it used to be, which was I just go to work and those are my work people. Everyone I know is really great friends. Some of my best friends are people that I've worked with. You kind of have something in common and you see each other all the time. It's really easy to develop that friendship. And as long as that's supported and harnessed, I think that that's a really great place to do that. And obviously opportunities for advancement, this is what everybody wants. But I think that with millennials specifically, they want to be able to see where they can go. As we talked about, millennials are very, very open to being adapt to change. So if you have opportunities for advancement, they see that, oh good, okay, at least, well, if I don't like this, then I can have maybe this other alternative career path within the company, something along those lines. If it looks like, well, you're going to come here and all you're going to do is make phone calls every single day and that's all you're going to do for the rest of your life, then they're going to say, well, that's not very exciting, and so how am I going to really feel committed to you, because I like the idea of being able to be open to change. So what do millennials want from their boss? So this is where talking a little bit about that role with the boss or the manager or supervisor is they want someone to help them navigate the career path. So one of the things that is commonly misunderstood about millennials, because all millennials are so self-assured, self-confident, educated, they come in with this, I kind of know everything. Well, we don't know everything. Most of the time you come out, you're right out of college, you have no clue what a career path actually looks like. You might not even know how to use a fax machine. You might not even know how to do multiple things. But because they're so self-assured, employers oftentimes forget that these are still young people that need to be taught the way of the world. And the way of the world in the corporate world, in the working world, is completely different than that of in schools and education. And so I think when you talk about what they need from their boss is they really need coaching, which I kind of skipped over to this one, but it's that same idea that they need someone to coach them through and help them develop these skills that they need and learn how to be in the workplace, again, with that positive reinforcement, and to help them navigate the career path so that they can feel comfortable with, well, how do I go from starting out at this company to getting where I want to be, and maybe the goal of the employee is, you know what, I really want 5 weeks vacation. So how do I get 5 weeks vacation? Well, you have to be here 5 years. So here's what we're going to do. This is how we're going to get you to be happy for 5 years and kind of navigate through that. From their boss, obviously, again, comes back to that timely and honest feedback. So continually saying, hey, you did a really great job today, or saying, hey, by the way, you know what, today during that meeting, I think that the way that you made this point wasn't as effective as I've seen you do it before, so let's rehearse that, let's practice that, so the next time we're in that same situation, you're more prepared. Or just giving that constant feedback is just really, really important. And obviously honest. Be very upfront with these people. Be very, very forthcoming, because they like it and they get it. They're not going to get their feelings hurt. We're used to this kind of constant feedback. The negative feedback's a little bit harder to take than other people probably would say. So I think just being really honest and being understanding that it's going to be harder is the key to that. Sponsorship for personal and professional development programs. So this means that, you know, as we talked about, that millennials want to continue to learn and continue to grow and continue to keep options open. They want to be able to move around if they need to. And so having these personal and professional development programs allows them to kind of learn more about the world and learn more about different things and actually learn more about themselves to see what kind of fits are best for them. So by supporting them with that, you're showing them that you have that work-life balance built into the company and that you believe in it. And that's why I think it's such an important thing. And obviously the flexible work schedule. So this doesn't need to mean anything crazy like, well, you don't have to work Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, but you have to work Saturdays and Sundays. It just means that, you know, if I have a doctor's appointment, it's really nice to be just kind of flexible about when I need to come in. And it's not such a big deal. It's not like I have to tell everybody in the office, that type of thing. And if there's something that comes up, you don't have to be kind of worried about getting an approval to take that time off or not. I think the worst thing is having to ask for that time off when you don't know what the answer is going to be. And I think that at the end of the day, just being kind of flexible with them is the best thing. You know, the millennials that I work with, I'm completely flexible with their work schedule because I trust them. And I think that that's why we value it so much, is because if you are flexible with me, it means that you trust that I'm going to work really hard for you, and that it doesn't really matter if I come in at 7 o'clock today or 9 o'clock tomorrow, I'm still going to give you exactly the same amount of work, and I'm probably going to work harder because I know that you actually gave me kind of a grant to kind of be a little bit more flexible. So that's what millennials are looking for from their supervisor or boss. Kind of talking about what they're actually looking for from their company. Some of these kind of overlap, so I'll go through this one a little bit quicker. Just talking about that, the assistance in developing skills for the future. So again, going back to that continued education, continued learning, strong values. This, I think, is probably one of the most important things for the company, that it needs to be strong values, but it also needs to be communicated. So again, talking about, well, do you just sell computers, or do you actually work with small countries to help communicate them with the third world, or to help advance countries, that type of thing. I mean, that's the strong value that you have. And the values may be that Disneyland is an example because they have really, really strong values. That Disneyland sells happiness. That's wonderful. They could say, well, what we do is we sell theme park tickets. That's not sexy. That's not a value. What you do is you sell happiness. That's exciting. That's going to intrigue and keep many, many people there. So I think that is probably the biggest takeaway in terms of the company is really fine-tuning your mission statement and putting that into a way that you can communicate to your groups in terms of recruiting and also for retention. Customized options and benefits and rewards programs. So there's a no one-size-fits-all. So if you talk to a millennial, what they want is choice. We want options. We want to be able to decide what works best for us. And we want that flexibility because we're so used to being able to have so many different choices. If I need a new TV, it's not like, oh, well, there's a Panasonic and a Sharp. It's like there's a whole menu of different types of TVs that I could look at. There's so many different options nowadays that's how we shop. We like to have choices, and we like to be able to pick exactly what works best for us. Again, allowing blending of work time with personal life, and then offering a clear career path. So that just comes down to your org chart. Have an org chart. Make sure it's communicated. Make sure it's discussed multiple times so that they can see and understand where they want to go and then also where you're expecting them to move throughout. So what do millennials want to learn? Technical skills. Obviously, this is a pretty obvious one. They want to learn self-management and personal productivity. This is a big thing because this is something that you can't teach in college. I can't teach somebody time management and personal productivity in college. You have to learn it through doing. You have to learn it by being multitasking and having multiple things, multiple deadlines and that type of thing. Leadership, same type of thing. They want to learn that. They want to learn that by example. So they want to see other people being leaders, and they want to watch them and say, wow, that's a really great leader. I want to be able to do the same thing. Industry or functional knowledge, creativity and innovative strategies. So they just want to learn everything basically. But I think at the end of the day, just allowing them and talking to them like, what do you want to learn and what are the areas that you're really interested in is important because it's at the end of the day, the most important thing is that they are continually learning. All right, so finally getting to the beef of how do you actually communicate with these millennials. Busy slide, lots of information, so let's go through it. How to engage and retain millennials. So you need to communicate a clear career path with goals and developmental agenda. So we talked about that. We know that. So you need to be able to actually talk to them about the clear career path. Don't just say that there's opportunity for growth at this company. Well, what does that mean? How long does it take to grow? If you're do you hire within? Do you promote within? Do you actually, if you needed to hire a new VP, are you going to recruit? Are you going to hire within and do that type of thing? You need to provide recognition for individual achievements and quality of work. So again, this needs to be the praise factor. So if somebody does something good, send out an email, send out a note, send out anything that just says, Billy did a really great job today, and we're really, really excited about that. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. It doesn't have to cost any money. It just needs to be your thought process, thinking that, wow, if they probably would love to have a little bit of recognition on the great job that they did today. Because they're a millennial, I know that's important. I'm going to take 2 minutes to go ahead and do that. Keep them motivated with new learning experiences so that new learning experiences don't make them learn the same thing 7 times and go to the same webinar and et cetera. That's going to bore the pants off of them. But learning new experiences, like having new things, going to webinars, going to conferences, leadership training, all the different things. They like having the different ways of doing that and keeping them motivated throughout that. Social media breaks. This is actually a really great idea. So create 5 to 10 minute social media breaks for your employees to improve productivity and reconnect with their friends and families. So this is an idea if you want to avoid the issue of having them on their phone all the time, which I know a lot of employers do. They just ban it entirely, that the computers that they're on, no Facebook, no Twitter, no LinkedIn, no nothing, no email, nothing at all, and then they can't use their cell phones. Well, you're going to drive your millennials bonkers, because that means that they're completely out of the loop all day. And so they're going to sneak and do it. One way or the other, they're going to get on their social media and they're going to figure out what's going on. So the way to get around that is to have a 5 to 10 minute little break for them to be able to get on there and then come right back to work, because it allows them to touch base with everybody, feel a little bit, tune out a little bit of work, see what's going on, and then jump right back to work and being productive. Volunteerism is a really, really great thing for millennials. They love this because it's something that their parents always wanted to do but never could because of the way that their work schedule was. So allowing employees to volunteer for their charity, like implementing a volunteer day, doing it as a team, you could do it as individuals. I've seen where people have, volunteering as a team building opportunity, and these are really wonderful things. We do this here at my office, and we absolutely love it. It doesn't always work with everybody's schedule, and some people aren't interested in doing it, but you know what? The people that do really, really love it, and I really love it because it's really hard for me to get away to do that any other time. But if my employer is saying, it's important to us that you also have the time to do this, that makes me feel like this is such a great place to work because they actually really care about not just making a profit, but also about the world. And I think that that is tagging back into that idea of having that sense of purpose. Team environment. I love, 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 love working in a team. So creating a team for projects is absolutely fun. It's like having a group of friends. Again, these are our friends that we're working with. And so working in a team environment allows you to work with your buddies. And a lot of millennials get better ideas by talking to other people. They like to share information. If you think about what Facebook does, you might talk about something, and what you're doing is you're getting feedback. You're getting a survey of what all your friends think about something. And that gives you, oh, okay, so everybody agrees that this is a good idea, so that makes me feel good, so I'm going to go forward with that. That's what that allows you to do in an indirect way. If by working in a team, it allows the same thing. You get that feedback, you get to work with your friends, and it's just kind of a more fun way of being productive. Offer an employee rewards program. So obviously this, again, is something that everybody needs to be having. So this is where you potentially have rewards for bringing on new people, recruiting new people, that type of thing. It's a really great thing. Offer a flexible bring your own device policy. So some people, this comes down to the Mac PC thing or the cell phone thing. There are a lot of people who are Mac only, and they like to work on their Macs. They're going to be more productive on their Macs. If you are allowing them to do that, that's great. Same idea of cell phones and that type of thing. Being able to bring your own device is a big deal. Okay, so that's the end of that slide. That was a big one. How to recruit millennials. So showcase opportunities for personal professional growth and development. So this means, again, how am I going to grow? What's going to be my career path? Be specific. Don't be vague. Don't say, again, there's all this opportunity for growth. It's going to be wonderful. We're going to take care of you. Yay. I mean, you have to be very specific that there's professional growth and development, meaning here's the training program that we use to get you up to speed. If you go down this career path, this is what it looks like. Use examples of, we had somebody who started right out of college. It took them 3 years to get to this point, and this is what they went through in those 3 years. Talking about kind of the personal growth that they went through, the way that the company supported them to get there, and that type of thing. And this is a point I brought up a little bit earlier, but if you tend to promote within, definitely make that very, very known, because that means that if there's an opportunity that's open, it doesn't mean that you have to go in and shove somebody out. It doesn't mean that you have to go in and try to take somebody's job. But if somebody does leave for whatever reason, that means that you have the potential for being promoted, and that's wonderful. That makes it a much more friendly work environment, and it doesn't make it so that you feel like, well, I'm never going to grow in the company because unless this person leaves, I'm never going to have the opportunity. Coming back again to the goals of the company and the expectations, make sure that those company goals are really clearly stated, because it's really important. Don't let there be any surprises later. So make it very, very clear what the goals and expectations are. If you expect these people to work overtime, you tell them you expect them to work overtime. That's okay, because the expectations need to be out there in the front. They don't like surprises later. So if you expect them to work from 7 to 4 every single day, and then expect them to do overtime and potentially on weekends, that needs to be very, very upfront, because, again, the work-life balance, if you start intruding on their work-life balance in a surprising way, they're not going to be very happy about it. So make sure that there's absolutely no surprises later. The internships and co-ops with the possibility of long-term employment is a really great idea, because this gives everybody the opportunity to see if it's a good fit. So give them a trial run. So let them come and do an internship or a job shadowing and say maybe that would be a great way to come in and kind of see what we're like and see if it's a good fit for you. And I think that that's a really great opportunity for you to also kind of see if they're going to be a good fit within the group. Because at the end of the day, as we talked about, millennials want to feel like it's a friendship, like it's a group. So if there's a company, if you're a company that has mostly baby boomers and you're going to bring in a millennial, you need to have them come in an internship and come in and see if that's going to be okay with them. Because I can tell you that if you have 90% baby boomers and you bring in a new millennial, they're only going to probably last 6 months unless you make major, major efforts to get them integrated into that group and make that the baby boomers, somebody takes the millennial under their wing or somebody mentors them specifically. Because if you don't allow that to happen, they're going to feel like an outsider and they're not going to feel like it's a family and they're not going to last very long. And it would have been a big waste on both people's time. And then this is the number one thing is you should use millennials to recruit millennials. I've done tons of recruiting at multiple companies that I've worked at, and it really, really helps to feel, again, like you have a friend right when you come into that job. The number one thing I was told was when I recruited people was that they wanted to work with me because it was, well, you're the one that inspired me to come here, and I want to work with you because you have such a great outlook on this, and I feel like we connected and that we already have kind of a friendship, and they can trust me and have already like a mentor role. That's huge. So if you can have that so that they work along the way, I think this is where I would stay away from hiring outside recruiters that have nothing to do with the company and are not going to be there for the long term. I mean, even if you're going to be using your HR department, find somebody in your HR department that's a millennial. And if you're going to recruit millennials, that's going to be absolutely perfect. So how to communicate. This is talking a little bit more on how to communicate on an ongoing basis. So again, millennials expect close relationships and frequent feedback from supervisors, good or bad. So they want to feel like, again, it's an open dialogue, an open friendship, vice versa, so that they can give good and bad feedback as well, because they want to know what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, so that they can adapt, because at the end of the day, they want to be successful. But they also want to feel like it's not a threatening relationship and that if they did something wrong, that you're mad at them or that you're going to fire them. They just want to know that, you know what, we're going to work with you and we're going to give you the good feedback and the bad feedback so that we can help you blossom into this young professional that I know you want to desperately be. They expect open communication from supervisors, even about matters normally reserved for more senior employees. So they want to know what's going on. I mean, we do. We want to know what's going on with the company. Are we profitable? Do we need to be hiring people? Are we going to be firing people? I talk to employers all the time about this because so many times employers, especially privately owned companies, have absolutely no open communication. There's all these secrets. There's all these things that you can't tell everybody. Well, we can't tell them this and we can't tell them that. Public companies tend to be a little bit better just because they have to share so much information, but I would still argue that the information they're sharing is not intended for their employees. It's intended for their investors. And so I think employers are really lacking in this area of communicating to their employees what's actually going on within the depths of the company. Maybe they're not a financial person, maybe they're not a salesperson or an executive, but they still want to know. They still want to be able to say, if they're talking to their friends, well, how's your company doing? You don't want to say, I don't really know, because no one really talks to me about that. You want to say, oh, our company's doing really great. We just got a debriefing, and I don't know a lot about it, but I know that our profit's better than it was last year, and I know that we're going to be hiring in the next couple years. That's great news. That means that I have job security, and that now I don't have to worry about that. If you don't tell me anything, I'm going to presume that there's probably something wrong. So that's what you need to kind of think about when you're talking about communications. And then obviously we talked about this plan for more than just an annual review, because you need to have that constant, continual discussion. So, I think honestly even the annual review being very formal is not a great way for millennials. They'd rather have a less formal, more informal, frequent reviews, kind of going on and on about the different things. Maybe having a review process that's more of a formal goal setting for the next year and talking about your updates on your goal achievements. So instead of at the end review talking about these are the things that you did bad, these are the things that you did good, let's look forward to next year, talking about, we've already talked about all the bad things that you've done and you've improved on them. We've talked about the good things and we're really happy about that. So let's look forward, let's talk about next year. We're really excited to have you here. I think that that's just kind of a different approach and something that I would probably recommend for millennials. And again, millennials prefer to work in teams. So the more that you can combine them, the better. And that communicating to them in teams is good. So one-on-one emails is fine, but in teams, you know, if you can start a dialogue via email with a group, we love that because we get to hear everybody's feedback and information. Some communication tips. So be flexible. So this is a huge thing because most of the people that may even be listening to this or that need the most help are baby boomers and Gen Xers and maybe beyond that, but they're not used to these communication styles. They're not used to having to maybe send a text message instead of a phone call or having an email instead of a formal written letter, things like that, that they're not used to that. So try to be flexible and don't downplay, just because it's new, don't downplay it like it's that young kid stuff. It's not that young kid stuff. It's the wave of the future. And at one point or another, these millennials are going to be teaching you how to use those systems. So appreciate the fact that they know that and don't treat it like it's something just for the young kids. Customize your approach. Everyone's different. So maybe, you know, a lot of times I ask people, well, what's the best way to approach you? Like, do you actually prefer email? Do you like phone calls? I have an employee here who, no matter what, she'd rather be emailed. She hates being on the phone. That's all she really wants. I want to be on the phone or in front of you. Like, emails take me longer. It's not as fun. It's much more formal. It's kind of boring. So that's how I'm different. But we're both millennials. So it's not that you can lump everybody into one big group saying, well, millennials all like the same thing. And that's why I say you need to ask and don't assume, because you need to ask what they're actually interested in. Don't assume that just because someone's a millennial that they're obsessed with Twitter and Facebook and that they think that they're really awesome and all that stuff. You need to ask them if they're even into that stuff and if that's something that they think is important. And I mentioned this, as a management team, make an effort to learn about the new technologies, because that, as we talked about, is the wave of the future. Whether you know it or not, your marketing departments are using these. So maybe you're not using them, but they're going to trickle on down into the leadership, HR, and management structures at some point or another, because it's just going to be the easiest way to communicate with people. As the older generation with more work experience, be willing to teach and listen. So this is a really big deal, because I think that because millennials come across as so self-assured, kind of entitled, kind of bratty, and you don't know if they're listening because they're texting and they're on their computer and you don't know what's going on, they're listening and they're learning and they want to learn from you and they will value that time that you take to actually do that. They want mentors and they really, really value that. It just takes some time to learn their learning style. So try to just be patient and understand that it's just a different type of person. It's a different type of audience. And this audience is going to react differently, but it doesn't mean that the message isn't going across. So some key takeaways are there needs to be a mutual trust and respect. So this is this reciprocal relationship. So at the end of the day, if the philosophical discussion of this is that millennials want a reciprocal relationship. They want to feel that I'll give you my time and energy if you give me flexible work schedules. I'll give you my time and energy if you have a value proposition that I really believe in. So it's that trust and respect with reciprocation that's going to take you a really long way. Give immediate and constant feedback. We've probably drilled this to the ground, but I think it's really, really important. Be flexible according to immediate and changing needs. So everybody has different needs. They're changing. Your company's changing. Your employees are changing. So just try to be flexible and try to be patient. You know, just like millennials have the reputation of being kind of, you know, entitled, et cetera, baby boomers have the generation of not wanting to make change. So just keep that in mind. Be a good mentor and a coach. So be open to teaching them and talking to them and mentoring them through this, because as I said, we're all so young and we're all still learning, and we want to learn. Even though we might not act like it all the time, we still want to learn. And ensure a good work-life balance. So make sure that you provide benefits and job structure so that they have that and they feel that, and make sure that you boast about that so that they know that it's there. Provide a clear career path that includes company goals and expectations. So again, talking about that career path of getting from step A to step B, how you get there, how long it takes to get there, the expectations, how many hours do we think we're going to be working, what's the pay you're going to be looking at. I think one of the key things too that really I would tie down to all of this is transparency. I mean, if you talk about millennials, they really want the transparency of what's going on with the company, what's going on with my job. Do you like me? Do you think I'm not a good employee? Are you going to fire me? Are we going to have hiring? Are we going to not? Am I going to be promoted? Am I not? Do you trust me? Do you not? They want transparency so that they can understand more. That's how we've learned. We've learned with very honest and open discussions with our parents, with our teachers, and now coming to the workplace, it's a little bit difficult to have a shield over what we're actually allowed to learn. So with that, I think Matt's going to open it up to some questions.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. We do have a few, but I do want to keep to our time commitment of 45 minutes and get you guys out ready for us on the West Coast here for lunch. So we'll just get to one, and if you did ask a question, we didn't have an opportunity to get to it, we will answer you directly by email. You have our word on that. Millennials, our word is a big thing, so you can take that to the bank. Also, if you are interested in following along with our webinars, you can go on anytime to hrwebinar.net and see the next one that we're coming up with here in the next month or two. So here we go. The one question that we'll take today is, I like everything that you said, but I don't believe my management team is in on this. How do I get them to buy in because they don't see millennials as a big issue?
Well, a couple things. I mean, maybe millennials aren't a big issue yet for your company. Maybe it's the time that I've met with employers where they have a majority of baby boomers. They're not hiring right now. They're not looking to hire probably for the next couple of years. I would say that they don't have the imperative need right now. I think that for that type of group, just starting the discussion that it's time to adapt the company, it's time to adapt that it usually kind of starts with the marketing department. The marketing department's going to say, we need to adapt, that our website needs to be more up to date, we need to have LinkedIn, we need to do social media and all that kind of stuff. And then slowly the rest of the company sees that that's what you're doing on your marketing side. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, why aren't we doing that now in-house? Why aren't we doing that with our actual employees? So I think starting the discussion of just, when we need to start hiring people and when we need to fill in this talent gap, it's going to be a drastic change for us. So we should probably start planting the seeds in-house so that that change isn't so dramatic to our current employees. Because the last thing you want to do is have these happy current employees and now you start recruiting millennials and everything shifts and they weren't ready for it. So I think if you're not ready for it, that you need to just start kind of planning and planting the seed and discussing it. And it'll take a little while, especially if you have some stubborn not wanting to change baby boomers.
All right, well, thank you very much, Jennifer, and thank you to everyone who attended today. Like I said, keep up to date at fickworth.com or hrwebinar.net. And if you have any questions or would like to further the conversation, you can feel free to contact us at the information on the screen. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.